Here is a look at my pile of trees here, ranging from big to small. So I will arrange them from, the thickest trunk to the skinniest trunk, and I'll try and get some perspective in the planting. The bigger trees in the front, the smaller trees at the back. I'm going to start by wetting my base layer of soil here. That'll kind of keep it in place. And it'll help keep the roots hydrated while I'm positioning the trees, so it doesn't suck the water out of the root system. This should hold a lot of water in the pot, but it has a lot of surface area, so it'll also evaporate quite quickly. So I'll have to really manage the watering. Okay, my first step is to position the main tree. And as I said, I wanted an elevation change. So let me just try the tree out at the height it is. This is the front here. And you can't go wrong with the, 1/3 rule, 1/3 salt flats, 2/3 island. So I think if this is about 1/3, I'd want the main tree planted somewhere here, and probably closer to the front, but I do want some salt flat areas of the front also, so maybe somewhere here. And I need to check the height. I do want, my island to step up. So that's a pretty good height if I bring the soil to the original soil line that it was at. But I may want to raise my roots slightly. I'm not sure. It might look too ridiculous if I have too much root base showing. Baobabs generally don't have a lot of surface roots above the soil line. That looks good to me. Now, here's halfway in the pot, and my tree is exactly halfway. It's in the middle, so I think I've got to bring it over further. And it's going to be very difficult to tell until I get all the trees planted. I'll probably, like I did with the rocks, I'll probably be arranging the trees for quite a while. Now, my second tree, my second thickest tree, is this one. And in the original planting, I had it kind of over to this side. But I'm thinking if I want perspective, I may want to reposition it, sort of. I've got to keep in mind my land section. I don't need to show a whole lot of salt flats out front, so I'm thinking I could bring the main tree closer to the front of the planting. More like somewhere there. And this tree, it is my second thickest tree. I'm going to try it here for now, just slightly back of the main tree. And I'll get up my third thickest tree, which is kind of, I think it's this one. This one's a little skinnier. And that one could probably go behind the main tree. Maybe. I might want to. No, I've got to pick a smaller one to go behind. I need to kind of maintain the larger trees up front. I'm wondering maybe this one would be better over here and this one in between back here. Now, from those Kubu Island photos, they tend to grow in clumps. I guess there's like a crack in the rock where the trees grow, and then there's space between that clump and the next trees. So right now I have them spaced out quite far from each other. And maybe that's not such a good thing. I think the main tree, because I have quite a canopy on it, it needs to be more by itself, a solo tree. And these ones, which aren't quite as interesting, the structure of them, maybe they're more like the clump. So let me get that third thickest tree out. Now this one is a kind of a toss-up between these two. This one's taller, so I'll use this as tree number 4, and maybe this will be part of the clump. That's a good front for it there. I'm just trying out ideas. So there's kind of a solo tree, a clump of 3. I think this has got to be moved even closer up here, giving it a bit more room. And I'm not sure how much. I said 1/3 salt flats. Do I need that much? Probably not. I could probably move the main tree over even further. So then I have this tree is the last of my kind of thicker trunks, and the rest are all quite small. So I think this one should be like a shoreline tree back here. Somewhere here. And then I've got 3 trees left over, and they're the smaller ones, and that could make a nice clump in the middle maybe. So a group of 3 trees back here. Now if I did that, I might have to move these ones over further, but that's a potential arrangement. I think that would give depth. I think this tree over here kind of matches the main tree, the canopy. These trees could be moved over closer to the edge because there won't be any salt flats on this edge. Kubu Island is quite large. And let's see what these 3 trees look like now. I'll try and position them. They don't exactly have a flat radial root system. That's part of the problem. But, you know, with rocks, you can hold them up. These Jades and Portulacaria afra, they're always top heavy because the leaves are fleshy. So they're a little more difficult to plant. But you can hold them up with stones and soil. So I'm just trying to get these to stay up by themselves so I can see if I am liking the composition at all. And my feeling is that this tree has equal weight with this clump, and it looks too... I think in this clump I need a smaller tree on the outside. So I think one of these trees from here needs to come over and replace one of these trees. So I will try taking this tree away. And which tree of this will I move? Maybe this one. It's fairly tall, it kind of matches a bit. It's not going to stay up by itself unless I lean it like that. Okay, and try this one back here with the smaller ones kind of with it. Oh, everything's tipping over. Oh, everything's tipping over now. Let's get them more up right here. Okay, let me try this out. And I'll show you it from the front if I think it has potential. I think that has some potential there. Let me show you it from the front. So here is a look at a possible planting arrangement. So I'm just studying it now. I do kind of like the trees in the clumps because it gives more space around them so they don't look like they're evenly spaced in the pot. And I think it looks more natural. Yeah, I think this arrangement has good potential. One thing I don't like is I've kind of evenly spaced it at the front here. This tree is almost in line with this one. And I feel if I move it back, I'm losing depth. You've got to use the full width of your pot, if possible. And I'm wondering if I could bring these forward or if that would look not so good. Or move the main tree more forward and these ones back a bit. I need some variation there. If I move the main tree forward, I'm losing a bit of space out front that I would have rocks in my salt plains. But maybe, that's okay if the salt plain ends here. I could have a little jut in here of salt plains like I did on the other planting. I'll try that. I'll bring the main tree forward. Kind of bringing it as close to the front as I can without the roots going funny on the edge of the pot. And then I can bring these ones back a bit. That looks good from above. And then I think this one could be brought a little more in between like that. Now, how is that looking? I like that better. I like the depth. I like the main tree out front. I've got, 3 levels of depth. I've got this level, back to this level, and back even smaller. And the tree on the outer edge kind of completes the shoreline. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Now the only other thing I could do is maybe move the entire composition over to the right a bit. I have a fair amount of space on this side, which doesn't look bad. It always looks good in a forest to have room at the edges of your pot. If you bring them too far to the edge, it looks like it's jammed in there, cramped, that the pot's too small. So I'm thinking this is looking good. I've got to pick all the fronts for the trees and arrange them properly, but I think the basic composition is quite nice. It's as good as it'll get, I think. Yeah, I like the clumps. It definitely, the other planting I had, the trees were spaced out more evenly, and it had a different feel to it. This looks more close up, and it makes the trees look more significant. Some of those trees on the other planting looked like they were really far in the distance and very small, but now everything looks pretty big. I'm surprised, actually. Maybe it's just that they were buried in the soil a little. Maybe once I bring the soil line up, they'll look quite a bit smaller. I may have to put a bit of soil underneath them to mound them up. That's the other thing I can do now, is get elevation changes. So I have, I've got 3 levels of depth, and then I want different levels of elevation. So maybe this, maybe these ones got to be higher up, and the ones in the background even higher, kind of creating a step landscape. I think that would look good. So I'll try that. I'll put some soil underneath the trees and lift them up. I'm afraid by doing this that if these get higher than this tree will look less significant and it'll highlight these more, but maybe not. Maybe it'll work. I don't think they need to be too much higher, and I can always grow the main tree taller in the future. Okay, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try getting some elevation changes, because the island it steps up from the salt flats, transitional area, another step, and then sort of the mountains in the background. I tried raising the two clumps here, and it did as I feared. It made the main tree less significant. It kind of brings them up to the same height. You can see all the trees look the same height in the planting, and that's not a good thing. So I think I'm going to have to elevate the main tree also and make kind of a rocky transition. It may be a little more of a cliff than I intended originally, but I think it'll look good. But I definitely think the main tree needs to be elevated too. It just disappears now. So I'll do that. I'll put soil under here, build it up about the same as I did on the others, and see how it looks. And I think maybe the background one will be a little shallower to create perspective. So this mound is larger here, largest smaller. I think that'll look good. I've elevated the main tree now, and I'm just having a look. Might be a little too high. I may bring it down, maybe bring all of them down a bit. But I think I can proceed with the actual planting of the trees now. I think my positioning is pretty well done. I'll have to arrange this group and this group. Yeah, so I think the next step is to comb the roots out, get soil around the trees, position them. And it's getting really hot in here. It's 42 degrees Celsius. It's Kubu Island temperature in here. And my camera, it doesn't run too long before it overheats. So I'm going to have to do a lot of this work and just kind of show you updates as I'm proceeding. If I leave the camera run in the greenhouse here, it just gets too hot for it. So I'll start, I'll comb the roots out, get soil around the trees, position them properly, and then we'll come back and have a look at it, a critical look at it, see if I'm happy with the composition, and then there'll be all the finishing touches like the rocks and the sand for the salt flats. Yeah, there's a lot of work to go on it. And these trees can be displayed in two ways. You can defoliate them and show them leafless in a dry season and have all the moss kind of brown, which tends to happen in the summer anyway. Or you can have it in leaf and have your moss greener. And yeah, you can have two different looks for your display, wet season and dry season, and both look really cool. I have got the trees planted. So next, I need to take a critical look at them. So here they are. Let me just... So that's a look. So my first thoughts is the main tree looks a little insignificant. I need to grow it larger, for sure. And maybe prune these other ones on the outside a bit smaller. I think that'll look better. These ones, as I said, they're almost as powerful as the main tree. Other than that, I'm happy with the background trees. They look like they're in the distance. The tree off to the side, I think looks good. It looks like a shoreline tree. It kind of complements the main tree. Yeah, so I think, some pruning over the years. And I've got to do the landscaping, which will really change the look of this planting. But my first step is to get the trees watered. And I've got to make sure the arrangement, I like it before I water it. Because once you water it, it's hard to move them around. The soil doesn't flow between the roots as easily. So do I like it? That's the question. I think so. I think I do like it. There's one branch on this tree at the side that bothers me a little bit. I could maybe rotate it just slightly. Like that. Yeah, I think that looks better. And I could prune it a little shorter maybe. It's not very upright, it's too horizontal, that's the problem with it. So here's a look from above now. So you can see the vast landscape. Salt flats will be over here. The smaller trees at the back are almost at the back of the pot, so I'm getting sort of the maximum depth, and my front tree is as close as I want to get it to the front of the pot. And these ones, nothing's in line. I think everything's looking good. So I think the next step is to water the trees. Keep them happy, let them recover from the repotting. And I think I'll be tackling the landscaping tomorrow because this greenhouse is getting super hot in here. So I'm hoping tomorrow I can do the landscaping, and then when the sun hits the greenhouse, it heats up and you get a good view of the trees in the sunshine. But I'm very happy with it. I think, you know, if I had put the trees in the original arrangement, it would have looked fine, but I think this looks even better, kind of grouping the trees. It gives more space between them, so they don't look kind of evenly planted. It looks more like Kubu Island to me. Yeah, so that's a look at the planting, so I'll give it a good water, and we'll take a final look at it, and that might be it for part 2. Okay, here I go, watering the forest. Kubu Island. I'm sure it doesn't rain much on Kubu Island, but today it's raining. And hopefully all will go well with the trees. And if, you know, a tree were to die, you can always plant another cutting and grow it up. And if I need to add more trees in the background, if I feel it's like too bare in spots, I can add some more cuttings and, you know, get even more depth of smaller trees in the background if I want. Okay, that is well watered. Here is a final look at the planting. I'm very excited. This is, you know, taking this forest to the next level, maybe the highest level. It's going to be very exciting doing the landscaping, the mosses, the rocks, the salt flats. I can hardly wait. If it wasn't 40 degrees Celsius in here, or almost 40 degrees Celsius now, I would do it right today, but I'm going to wait. And it never hurts, with a new planting like this, it never hurts to look at it for a couple of days or even a day. Make sure you're happy with it, because, you know, this is your chance to correct things. If you need to move trees around, it's definitely a good chance to do that. One thing I'm noticing is maybe the clump on the other side, the trees are a little symmetrical, the spacing. The other group is good back in the distance. So maybe I need to bring that one tree out a bit, I think. Let me do that. Yeah, I like that. It matches the tree, main tree, and the tree in the distance, kind of the spacing on the other side, and it makes it very asymmetrical, but homogeneous. Yeah, I think that's good. I like that. And definitely, you know, these trees could be pruned down a bit, and the main tree grown up a bit bigger. And all the trees can grow. I mean, there's no real restriction on size. The trees, the canopies will kind of mesh together eventually. I'll have to keep them pruned so they're, so they maintain each tree as an individual tree. But yeah, I'm very happy with this. I think once I get the rocks in, it's just going to look like Kubu Island, and that's exactly what I wanted. It's a very magical landscape, and to have it in miniature is really nice. Recently I pruned the tops off of my actual baobab trees, and they're looking good. Where I sealed the top with the glue, it's not rotting back or dying back or anything. The leaves are still green. So I can hardly wait to someday landscape these trees. I'll use the big stones and make a really cool planting with them someday in the future. I sure enjoy working on these Portulacaria afras. The main tree is the height of my hand. It's a small tree, but the idea of bonsai is to make a small tree look big, and I think I'm kind of getting towards that goal. It's getting more mature looking, and the structure's nice, and I hope this planting just keeps getting better into the future. It's taken a big step today, getting it out of a mica pot into a ceramic pot for the first time. It's a big pot, but I think I'll be able to lift it no problems because I won't have those giant rocks in here. I'll just have all the small rocks. And yeah, I think it'll be hopefully a magical landscape. So that is it for part 2 of this series. Part 3, I'll be doing all that stonework, the landscaping. It'll be very exciting. So that's it for part 2. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.